Enforce the damn subpoenas. The breakdown starts now. Good evening and welcome to The Breakdown. I'm Tara Setmayer, and as always, the Rick Wilson is with me. And tonight, we've got a big show because, I don't know, a couple things happened since the last time we were all together last Thursday. We have some ads, we had some trending hashtags, we had some people yelling at Rick Wilson, we had Rick Wilson yelling at people on Twitter. It's been an eventful couple of days. But tonight, our guest on the show tonight is a friend of the show, Harry Litman. He's a former federal prosecutor, and he's also the host of the Talking Feds podcast, which is an awesome podcast. If you don't listen, subscribe. Harry will be joining us in a little bit to chat a little bit about the subpoenas, January 6th, and AT&T, and some other things going on out there. So stay tuned for Harry. Rick, before we get into the show tonight and headlines and things, you have been a rabble-rouser. You've lived up to your rabble-rouser reputation the last couple of days. And, we here at the Lincoln Project have really minced no words about how we feel concerning the January 6th committee.
Yeah.
And the importance of reminding the American people why January 6th matters so much. And on Friday, you caused a little bit of a kerfuffle because you actually just continued the conversation we had on Thursday about the importance of the committee making sure they enforce these subpoenas. And Thursday came and went, was the deadline. Friday afternoon, you put out a video, you had a word for them. It didn't make some folks happy.
You know, Tara, I was extremely clear about what I had heard from folks, multiple sources now, in Congress, in the committee, in DC, all of whom are in a position to know exactly what the hell is going on. And I have been told what I said in that video on Friday, that this was, that they have been moving with a glacial pace and that they're afraid of the fight to get in there and brawl with people like Steve Bannon over both the subpoena enforcement and executive privilege matters. And if they don't do that, if they don't bring in the people who are the main conspirators in the conspiracy to overthrow the 2020 election, they should just wrap it up now. And I've written about this for months and months and months, where I have said the Democrats need to treat this with the utmost gravity. They need to be aggressive. They need to stay, look, I'm not saying anyone needs to break the law. They need to stay in the bounds of the law, but they need to be aggressive. They need to treat this as Republicans would treat it, like a spectacle. They need to understand the political power of doing the right thing. And so that afternoon, of course, the 1-6 committee issued a tweet at me saying, this is nonsense. And Liz Cheney, who I count as a good person, as a friend who's done the right thing in this, tweeted, oh, this isn't true. Well, it's 4 days in now.
That's right.
And the committee had said their statement said they will swiftly consider penalties against people who are defying their subpoenas. Let me tell you something. In Rick Wilson world, swiftly consider is like, let's figure this out in the next 20 minutes, not let's sit around and contemplate our navels for a long weekend and then decide when we come back on the 19th of October what we might consider hypothetically, possibly having a meeting to broadly lay out the potential strategic implications of maybe sort of kind of holding people to account.
Right. I called it the Susan Collins response.
Right. There's a lot of hand-wringing.
Hand-wringing and deeply concerned, and nothing happens.
Heavy sigh.
And to back you up, Rick, on this, many people know that I spent many years on Capitol Hill. I was on Capitol Hill during the rise of the Tea Party, during Fast and Furious, during the Obama administration, during the Benghazi debacle. I was there for all of that. When Republicans were relentless, they were unrelenting in going after the Obama administration for things way less than this. Yep. And I remember when they voted to hold Eric Holder in contempt of Congress and issue a criminal referral. for withholding documents for Fast and Furious.
Yeah.
That, I mean, it was messed up, but it is nothing compared to this. I tell you right now that Republicans, if the shoe was on the other foot, the Republicans would have been lined up, ready to go with a vote for contempt of Congress for anyone that violated subpoenas the way these people had. They telegraphed it, for God's sakes. Not like it was a surprise. Those votes would have happened on Friday. They already would have been referred right now. So that's what we're talking about. I want to be clear to our Democratic friends, and we have friends that are on the committee. We have people that are, working behind the scenes to do the right thing. We are not trying to tank the committee. We're not
For
trying
God's
to.
sakes.
Absolutely not. We are 100% supportive of those efforts. But we are standing up for the Americans who are looking at this going, guys, take this seriously and use the levers of power you have to put the wrath of God into these intransigent bastards and make them come and comply. If you do not do that, they don't know any other language but force. That's the only thing they know. And the other side wouldn't hesitate to use the levers of power to their advantage for much more nefarious purposes. They've done it in the past. So please, when we say this, when we're warning you and asking you, begging, pleading with you to be more aggressive, we're not just speaking for ourselves. We're speaking on behalf of the American people who want to see these people brought to justice. We're speaking on behalf of the law enforcement officers who were injured that day. We're speaking for those 4 brave officers who went to Capitol Hill and put their careers on the line to speak out, and their lives again on the line because they get threats for doing it. We're doing it for them. So for the love of God, please do not dilly-dally around with this. Otherwise, the other side is going to laugh at you, and the subpoenas and the congressional power isn't worth the paper that the subpoena is written on. That's where we're coming from on this.
And I want to say one more thing about this, Tara, before we move on to the next segment.
Because we have more stuff that we've gotten ourselves into.
We do. I want to say one more thing about this. There have been a lot of people, friends on the left, friends on the right, friends in the center, who thought this was some sort of, stunt or a play. This was based on sourcing inside Capitol Hill, folks I trust and know, both sides of the aisle. And I've got to tell you, if you don't believe that we are intent on making 1/6 a major part of the 2022 election, you're not paying attention. And folks who understand that making and nationalizing the race in 2022 is absolutely vital for Democrats to maintain control of the House, then you need to study political history in every off-year election. The party out of power has only gained seats 3 times in the last 100 years. One of them was in 2002. Why? Because as a Republican and as one of many Republican consultants out there, we nationalized the race to make it about national security.
That's right.
So every single person running in the 8th District of Florida or the 12th District of California or the 15th District of New York or wherever it was could run on a unified idea.
And if Republicans have continued to use that blueprint.
Absolutely.
They have continued to do it because it's successful.
Right. If Democrats aren't paying attention right now, the 2022 election, and you won't like it. You won't like it at all, but it'll be about critical race theory, Antifa, vaccine mandates. It will be about the culture war cluster the Republicans want. You should make it. And the 1/6 Commission has the advantage of doing the right political thing, the right policy thing, and the right patriotic thing by organizing and pressing forward to tear this conspiracy apart in broad daylight. Get Steve Bannon there, Roger Stone, Alex Jones, Ali Alexander, Mark Meadows, the entire mutant parade of weirdo scumbag conspiracy guys who all put this thing together. Get Donald Trump's kids on the stand. Do the spectacle, because the spectacle is what will draw attention. It will nationalize the race. It will make it work.
And it will energize their base.
And on my headstone, I'm going to have engraved, do I have to do all of this shit for you?
Yeah, I know. Look, that's what we're here for, right? That's what we're here for. And I'm glad that we are a part of it and that we have the Lincoln Project and all the folks that support us, that we have this reach. Because I will say this repeatedly. We have been in the trenches with these people in the past. We know the tactics. Trust us. We're not making this up. We've lived it. Speaking of that, when you talk about nationalizing the election, just we have, well, actually talking about the mutant parade. Let's do that first. Because the mutant parade was out in full force over the weekend. You had Trump in the, at this rally out in Iowa. You had Steve Scalise denying whether, wouldn't admit that the election wasn't fraudulent. There was a lot that went on. So let's revisit what happened last week in the Republican Party.
Make America great again, because we already did it, right? We're going to make America great again.
The best, most inspiring fighter in our movement is Donald J. Trump, and that's why I've pledged to nominate him for Speaker of the House.
Everywhere I go, people are stopping me. If only we could get Trump back. If only we could get Trump back.
The return of Trump. And it ain't going to be in 2024. It's going to be in 2022 or maybe before.
The Democrats want to destroy the country. We know this. They want to see America completely obliterated, where there is no cultural identity, where you live in sexual anarchy.
Mainlining pot and other drugs.
Why are they sexualizing superheroes? I was a Batman and a Superman, Spider-Man kid. I loved those heroes. We just wanted them to get the bad guys, not a venereal disease.
The poorest people in our country actually are equivalent to the middle class in most countries. We are a huge success.
I know the media wants to distract from the Biden administration's failed agenda by focusing on one day in January.
The media, M-E-D-I-A, most evil demon in America.
There are no organized white supremacist forces in this country. We have a lot of problems. That's not one of them.
After calling for the cancellation of Christmas again, somehow Anthony Fauci still has his job.
So we have hundreds of thousands of people flowing in from Haiti. Haiti has a tremendous AIDS problem. Many of those people will probably have AIDS, and they're coming into our country.
This is the first and only patent-pending and copyrighted Ashley Babbitt angel puppet. She flies on a 15-foot pole in the air, which I can demonstrate. And she waves her arms with the Trump hat and the American flag.
Whew,
that was a hell of a last week in the Republican Party episode, I must say.
Yes, shout out to our.
And by the way, the only sexual anarchy Charlie Kirk has ever experienced is when he tells his mom not to pick up his special sock. Jesus Christ.
Frank! Oh my goodness. Okay. You just never know. You never know what's going to come out of our mouths. Oh, well. I have this image now, Rick, for God's sake.
Yes, and you will never lose it.
Oh, it'll ever
cannot unsee.
Well, another image that is in the heads of AT&T now is the Lincoln Project ad that is currently at 1.1 and counting million views. Why have we gone after AT&T again? Well, you may have heard last week that AT&T, through this Reuters story, this pretty blockbuster story by Reuters, that exposed the fact that AT&T has been funding the Looney Tunes conspiracy theory network OANN. Yes, that station, the station with the, I've got magnetic arms now because I took the vaccine, the, crazy Russian conspiracy theories over there. They're bad news. Okay. And AT&T, 90% of the funding for this network has come from them. That has not made people happy who are AT&T customers. And this isn't the first transgression. AT&T has a funding problem. This isn't the first transgression on the part of AT&T as a company. If you remember earlier in the year, we went after them because they pledged initially when lots of companies were trying to be corporately responsible and not fund any legislator who voted not to certify the election after the January 6th insurrection. And we all applauded. That's great. A bunch of these companies that said, no, we're not going to give any political money to anyone that objected, any of the 147 Republicans that objected to the election. Well, that didn't last very long because AT&T reneged on that. And they began funding through the national committees and the larger committees and using the loophole saying, well, that's not individuals. We're giving to the bigger committee. And the committee promised us they're not going to give it to those transgressors. Well, we know that's a bunch of BS. They also funded legislators who supported and sponsored the voter suppression legislation in Georgia, the Texas abortion law in Texas, and the voting rights, the voter suppression laws in Texas. AT&T has been a bad actor. Now it's OANN. Well, we let them know that we have our eye on it. Abe is watching. Take a look.
Friends, family, the people who make our lives complete. With AT&T, you can reach out to those people to feel the connection too many Americans are missing today. In addition to reliable connections and crystal clear sound quality, your AT&T plan helps fund One America News Network. OANN is a streaming channel that hires radical, alt-right, white nationalists as hosts, cheers the Capitol attacks, and promotes COVID-19 conspiracy theories. Want more? By keeping your cell service with AT&T, you can help pay OANN host Pearson Sharp to call for mass executions. And with AT&T, you'll be able to keep funding politicians like Texas Governor Greg Abbott, who pushes radical new laws against voting rights and women's rights. AT&T, funding sedition, oppression, and of course, One America News Network.
The Lincoln Project is responsible for the content of this advertising.
Shout out to our own Michelle Kinney with the fabulous voiceover there. She is our voiceover extraordinaire now and wears many hats for us, including assisting both Rick and I, and she's instrumental and creative. So that was her major debut there. The most
instrumental. How she runs the creative department. All of it. All the time. I work for her.
That's right. So we love you, Michelle, and great job. That ad ran on Brian Williams' show last night on MSNBC, and it has been on fire. Like I said, over 1.1 million views since this morning. And why? Because it's resonating with people that they don't want their money going to a company that's funding insurrectionists, voter suppressionists, and anti-abortionists that are taking, however you feel about the abortion issue, but the draconian laws in Texas are problematic for a lot of women, and it scares the bejesus out of them, and it should, because you don't want that coming anywhere else. So we noticed, and even anecdotally within the organization, that a lot of people have said, you know what? We're done. They're walking away from AT&T. Their stock was down yesterday, and
52-week low.
Yes. And so as Rick Wilson would say, shot chaser. So we decided we're going to start this little hashtag. If you are one of those people who has decided that you're done with AT&T and you've made the switch, take a screenshot, show us, and do hashtag hang up on AT&T. Hang up on ATT. Screenshot it, hashtag it. Let's send a message. And, we'll pick a couple people randomly and send them some LP gear. But we want to get this trending because that's the way to get to these folks. When they start to see the money in their pockets, the righteous anger of the American people, things change because they need to be held accountable. So hang up on AT&T if you're done with them and don't want your money going toward helping to fund insurrectionists. All right. So now we're going to bring in tonight's guest, Harry Litman, who is a friend of the show, as I said, former federal prosecutor and host of the Talking Feds podcast. Harry, I know you've been listening to us, in the beginning of the show, ranting about various things of import. But I wanted to get your reaction to this thing concerning AT&T, and then we're going to talk about January 6th. But were you shocked as a lot of us were, that AT&T was freaking funding OANN?
It's so great, right? And the reason they're funding, first, I just want to say, I've always wondered how your ads are so brilliant. Now I know. Michelle Kinney, kudos.
Yes, Michelle, I'm telling you.
Props. What the hell? Here's the reason that they said, Fox News needs an alternative. The 24/7 silo of Fox News that people justifiably argue we wouldn't have even, Nixon would still be president if Fox News are around in 74. That's what we need, Nixon. An extra run. And AT&T, brilliant, sort of parody of their ads, but it's straight money. Oh, these conservative guys are minting it. We want some of that too. And I don't know if you've seen OAN. You probably have.
Sadly,
how can you make Fox News look reasonable and sober? Answer.
It makes Fox News look like PBS.
Who is OAN? Who that guy just lost yesterday? Finally, It's mind-blowing. And of course, it's straight up profit. You know, there's not even the semblance of some kind of, you know, concerted, wild-eyed, crazy conservative ideas there. Fox makes a lot of money. We want them some of that money too. So that's how I feel here in the epicenter of sexual ambiguity. It's all about money.
It's anarchy. Sexual anarchy.
Sexual anarchy.
Sexual anarchy.
That's
okay,
right.
Yeah.
You know, words matter.
I knew I was
Keywords.
missing out on something.
Right. It's anarchy.
Anarchy. All
You know, these
Damn.
people they take it, it's insane. I don't know who tweeted it out before, but they take it so far. Sexual anarchy. There are these protesters now running around showing Nazi swastika signs, but with needles, you know, representing the vaccine, comparing it to the SS. Like these people have lost their freaking minds.
And there is something more sinister here, because from their point of view, same as Rupert Murdoch, somebody had an idea to just print billions of dollars, and that's the reason, you know, in a hop, skip, and a jump, we have January 6th.
That's right.
It's friggin' crazy. Okay.
That's exactly right. And I had another theory. I was on Dan Abrams' show on News Nation last week talking about this when it first broke. And I didn't mention it there because I didn't think about it till after I got off the segment. But let's not forget, AT&T went through that merger during the Trump administration, right? And the Trump folks, we know this, that they were undermining and trying to stop, which should have been a routine corporate merger, but they didn't like the fact that AT&T was going to acquire CNN. And he had this beef with CNN, and it was like causing a problem with the merger, which should have been not a big deal. So that makes me think that AT&T propping up OAN was a way to placate the Trump folks, because they knew that Trump was, you know, he liked those folks, and that it was a way to placate them to help get that merger through.
Tara,
that's a theory I
Mr.
have.
The Wilson, you actually, is it Mr. The or you actually think there was monkeying around with the antitrust division under President Trump, and maybe it was put in the thrall of the broader political, well, I have nothing more to say about that.
I've learned a powerful lesson in the last 5 years. Never underestimate either the mendacity or the venality of people regarding Donald Trump, either inside or outside of his camp. If he has a power over them, he will use it. And if he has if he has something, they have something to gain from him, they will pay for it. And
I say, you know, I wouldn't be surprised if, as more people look into this, that we don't find out that there was some shenanigans going on there.
I think definitionally shenanigans are basically the only game in town.
If there was a meeting, there were shenanigans. Of course, there were meetings all over the place. There are, I mean, quite serious. There are procedures in place, and they were treated as, you know, tissue, as things to be disregarded. So yeah, all kinds of rapscallion stuff could have gone on.
Rapscallion. There's a word my grandmother used to say that called me a rapscallion.
Yes.
Also, she used to call me a scalawag.
Did she call you sexually anarchic?
No, but she did say one time that boy could talk the panties off a nun.
No.
Ooh.
Oh boy.
I gotta write some of this down. Okay. All right.
Well, it lives in perpetuity.
But that's another image right now, and we have that Tara to contend with.
I know. I know. Thank you very much.
For the old
I'll
one,
never tell.
And now it's like talking panties off. Oh God. Okay, I'm back. All right.
All right, we're back. We're back.
We're back.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Transitioning. Hard turn to January 6th. So Harry, are we the only ones that are just completely exasperated with what's happening and what feels like a certain dragging of the feet of the January 6th committee concerning this lack of respect for the subpoenas? We'll think about it, kind of sort of strongly worded letter. Please show up and testify. Can you please answer, as a lawyer and former prosecutor, what can the committee do to compel these people to come and show up and testify?
Because they're going to very quickly consider that. But look, I do have a different view. I do think Schiff and Eric knows what's going on, and they've been thinking about this for weeks, but they're talking like they're holding, you know, a pair of kings, and they've got a 9 and a 10. It's really a lamentable situation for stupid reasons. It's just, it could be repaired. I don't know why Congress won't do it. Ted Lieu has a proposal, but the problem is the natural time cycle of a court, and any jerk can go to court for any reason. That should be the motto under the Trump presidency.
Yes.
So I've learned.
Is gonna go 18 months to 2 years, and a congressional investigation needs to wrap up more quickly. So there are 3 things they can do. We saw them do one last time. It didn't work. People are talking about inherent contempt. Hasn't been done in 100 years. But here's the big thing we're going to do that you said you would have done right away. Criminal referral. Here's the problem. The criminal referral to the Department of Justice that says, throw in the pokey these who? Former executive branch officials, including, Steve Bannon didn't even work there for years. But there's a policy there. There's even an opinion there that says we're not going to do this for executive branch officials. So they're actually playing a kind of triangulated game of chicken with DOJ. Because DOJ has already shown they see the gravity here, but are they going to actually, and Merrick Garland, not this kind of AG so much, change their policy to go after them, thinking, when the shoe is on the other foot, we're gonna, even though everybody agrees 100% crime, 100% violation of law, what they're doing with subpoenas, you couldn't be righter about how they're flouting it and all of that. And it's all about remedy and the fact that the 3 things out there just don't quite amount to that much. So I think we're about to see the slow motion train wreck start to leave the station and take 18 months, and what they're going to try to do as best they can, but it's a pale second, is get people to cooperate a little bit, and now they'll be playing on their terms. Mr. Meadows, pretty please, will you talk to us a bit if we promise not to sue you?
So just to be clear, and then Rick, I'll let you ask the question.
Yeah.
So it is DOJ that has a policy internally, similar to the policy of we don't indict sitting presidents. That's just a policy. It's internal guidance. It's not a law. It's not a regulation. It's not a statute. They could change that if they wanted to. But the reason why they're hesitant, I think, is probably because of Watergate and the fallout from there. They don't want to what seems as politicizing the Department of Justice. Is that the reason?
100%.
I mean, if there was ever a time,
I can't add to it. Tara, you're dead on. But look, you know what DOJ needs to do, or the country, Congress, put a little bit of Texas into this. What they want to do is have a regime that exacts a cost for these, what's the word? Weirdo scumbags and intransigent bastards. I learn so much every time I come to this podcast, who say that they're not going to do it. There needs to be a cost. It needs to be the case that if they go to court and play these games and they're wrong at the end of the day because their legal claims tend to be garbage, they have to pay. They do have to go to jail. They do owe $100,000. Right now, it's a total free play for 18 months.
Well, and there are a lot of people in this process that the committee needs to talk to who are not executive branch folks, who are not advisors to the president at any point. I mean, I think the Bannon thing is a concatenated series of little pyramids of bullshit. He wasn't at the time an advisor to the president. And Trump is no longer the president, trying to do this retroactive. I have as much executive privilege as Donald Trump does today.
Yes, but Donald Trump didn't give you, Mr. the Wilson, a piece of paper that says, so fight me so you can show in court. But 100%, the Bannon claim, and I think it's unlikely they'll do it wholesale. I think it might be sort of 3-to-1 plausible that they'll say, okay, we're gonna prosecute Steve Bannon. That would be pretty interesting.
I would welcome that decision.
Yeah.
And I do think there are, like I said, there are a lot of people that were involved in the Stop the Steal part of this. And by the way, you know who else was involved? You've got Kimberly Guilfoyle. You've got Donald Trump Jr., Roger Stone, Ali Akbar. You've got Alex Jones. You've got Charlie Kirk with the buses. There are a lot of people they could bring in who have no credible claim to executive privilege and no credible claim to having advised the president in some capacity on this.
Right. And one
if
quick
they
point,
are making
the
that
DOJ
claim,
could bring them in, but then they've got their panoply of rules. Well, if it's grand jury, you can't talk about it. If they don't do a prosecution, you can't talk about it. They're strong but opaque. Congress is weak, but somewhat determined.
I think this is one of those incidences where, and look, I'm a big rule of law guy. I truly believe the rule of law should be sacrosanct, and I also believe that there are people on the other side of this equation who have learned to hack the system, and they will burn everything down while using the restrictions that are on everyone else that control bad behavior on the side of people who are trying to do the right thing. They will burn this whole thing down and without hesitation. We saw them
do it in real time in the last few years. So
they showed us. They showed us their playbook. We already know, like, this isn't news.
Yeah.
If we, before we thought, oh, the first time that with impeachment and other things where we're like, what are they going to do? Because
could they really? Oh,
right. Could they really?
Right.
Why does a dog, etc.
Right.
Yeah,
that's right. And then we saw how far they would push it. So again, it feels very frustrating. And if you put a little jersey on it, we would put a fucking foot up their ass if they don't get their asses in court.
And I mean, look, it's bad people weren't held criminally accountable. It's bad that he has people in thrall, but it's abominable that a democracy can't have the full account of what happened here. That's
right.
We not 9/11, JFK, anything. That's the first paramount objective, and we're here saying pretty please to intransigent bastards.
Right, and they are people who. Yeah. I mean, Steve Bannon says it all the time. I'm a Leninist. He is not here to assist anybody. He's here to burn it all down.
Burn down the house.
Self-admitted. Which actually brings me to another topic with you, Harry. I know that you interviewed Costa and Woodward on your
you guys are ridiculous. How'd you find that out?
Oh, little birdie told me.
Okay.
For
my
your
little
podcast.
birds are everywhere.
Yes. Yet. Okay.
Yes. Well, it will be. So we are shamelessly plugging your podcast.
Thank you so
because
much.
It's excellent.
Yeah. It's talking books, that aspect of the podcast now. We got a new name.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
When you were talking to them, and obviously they're the authors of Peril, Steve Bannon, there's a tidbit in there where he talks about how they were going to, like, previewing that they were going to basically bury Biden on January 6th. He used that term, and he didn't, in his crib, right? We're going to bury the Biden presidency in its crib. He doesn't deny that he said that. He's, like, proud of it, actually. I think this was either the day before, a day or two before January 6th. When you interviewed them, was there anything that stood out the most about that time period that alarmed you in your interview with them? Give us a little preview.
Yeah. Thanks very much. By the way, Bannon, he's pretty garrulous guy for he'll say all kinds of stuff. So yes, I mean, here, I'll tell you one thing that I don't think had been reported before that blew me away, and that was, and this is worth really going back over the book, the unbelievable nasty, treating like a little lapdog from Trump to Pence. Mm-hmm. You're weak. You have no courage. If you don't do this, you're not my friend. I made you, and we talked about that also. Wouldn't it be fun? What a great persuasive. Wouldn't it be fun, Mike, if you had this power? That's actually what's in there. So as always, how are they a fly on the wall, et cetera. But that was, I think, new and I, kind of surprised me. But they're the ones who did break the story on this Eastman memo. And the thing about that memo among nerdy lawyers like me is there's a worry that it's actually completely bankrupt, but an actual blueprint for 2022. The idea of that memo is to sow chaos and, Texas again, stay away from the courts and just have it be a mess and have Congress come in and, et cetera. So that's pernicious in the extreme. And that's a sobering piece of work.
And that's something that I don't think has gotten enough attention.
Yeah.
The Eastman memo, that's the coup
Yeah.
memo.
Right.
And even though, to Rick's point, that even though they were unsuccessful, it's just a practice run. If they don't pay a price for it, which is clearly
That's, I
what
think
we've seen.
Costa said that, somebody in the book, maybe it's Bannon, says it's like 1905, the putsch in Russia, to 1917.
That's right.
It's all
Yeah.
and that
Again,
the
guy's a
quoting
Leninist.
Lenin.
That's
Yeah.
right. That's right. And
Yeah.
when you turn to the pages of the Webster's dictionary and you see oleaginous, you see Mike Pence's face right there on his knees.
Yes,
He's an oleaginous prick.
Yeah. You throw him in a
Mr.
lake, you
President, your
get
ass smells like
oleaginous for a
honeysuckle
week.
and rainbows.
Well, on that note, I think we have given our
All
viewers
right,
a
back
sufficient
to-
amount of vocabulary
Back to
words for the
sexual
evening.
anarchy here. See you guys
Harry,
next time.
Harry Litman, thank you so much for joining
Thanks,
us.
Harry.
Always
Great to have you as
pleasure.
always.
All right. Bye.
Always a pleasure.
I'll see you in a couple weeks on the pod.
You bet.
Oh, it's always a good time with
He's a good guy,
Harry
very
Litman.
smart, understands this system better than almost anybody out there.
Yeah.
I love having him on. He's so good.
He's a good time. And he also, he breaks it down. He's very relatable in
Yeah,
the way that,
absolutely.
that he explains it. Because sometimes the lawyerly part of this people's eyes can glaze over. What? But he makes it very simple to understand. So it sounds to me like he's not very optimistic about the January 6th committee really using their power the way we'd like to see it. But you never know. I mean, I'm glad to see that Adam Schiff is now out there speaking a little bit more on behalf of the committee. He is an excellent messenger, better than some of the other folks on the committee. He's just very good at this. Probably because of his experience with the impeachments and things, and he was a prosecutor. He's just a better messenger
And it's important.
All.
I mean, and he understands, I think, unlike some of the other members, it's important to be on offense.
Right.
It's important to drive the ball down the field. It's
That's
important to put the other side on defense all the time.
That's right.
I want Steve Bannon and Roger Stone and all these other assholes papered constantly. I want their lawyers to have the sound of the cash register going cha-ching every minute of the day.
Make them pay, literally. You have to.
As you start breaking them off, and look, Bannon is protected. He's got his sugar daddy who will pay whatever jajillion dollars he needs for legal fees. But the rest of them do not. And you will start breaking them very quickly if you do that.
That's right. That's right.
Being on offense, as with everything else in the world, it matters a lot.
Defense wins games, but offense wins political battles.
Yep.
So before we go, speaking of political battles, we want to make sure that we talk a little bit Virginia tonight because we're still in this fight in Virginia.
Yep.
Poll just came out that shows the race is still neck and neck. McAuliffe is at 50, Youngkin at 47. That's still statistically a dead heat. Way too close. Shouldn't be this close, but it is. And we here at the Lincoln Project are continuing to insert and assert ourselves into this race because we are imploring the McAuliffe campaign to nationalize this and make this race about the MAGA agenda, Donald Trump, and the fact that Glenn Youngkin is a coward and too scared to stand up to MAGA, and that he will be susceptible to the Trump agenda in Virginia. You want to end up like Texas or Florida? Elect Glenn Youngkin. So we're trying to show them how to do it. So here's our latest ad in the Glenn Youngkin race here in Virginia. Take a look.
4 years ago, anti-Semitism and bigotry invaded Virginia.
You also had people that were very fine people on both sides.
Now, that same ugliness has returned. The Virginia Republican Party has been exposed, sending anti-Semitic hate mailers.
They manipulated a photograph to depict Lieutenant Colonel Helmer adoring piles of gold.
The Washington Post writes, this anti-Semitism is classic and blatant. Glenn Youngkin refuses to denounce these hateful tactics. No wonder he's Donald Trump's candidate.
This is no longer a campaign, it is a movement.
Glenn Youngkin has told us who he is. The question for Virginians is this who we are?
The Lincoln Project paid for and is responsible for the content of this advertising.
You know, folks, I want to be very clear about something. If you take a Jewish candidate in an ad from the side exaggerate his features, and have him hovering with his hands out over piles of gold, you're not a political party. You're just recapitulating Der Stürmer in Germany in 1933. You're playing up against the ugliest, most hideous tropes. And this is a state now where Glenn Youngkin went on the radio show of Seb Gorka the other day. A day before Charlottesville, Seb Gorka says, "Oh, there's no white supremacists there. Oh, that's not a problem. The problem is Antifa." He is a guy who has probably worn a Nazi medal on a uniform. He is a guy who has praised neo-Nazi groups in Europe for the work they do. And Glenn Youngkin went on his radio program
like it was nothing.
Happy
to be here.
Yeah, hey, Seb, how are you? And Youngkin has been squirrely as shit about Charlottesville. He is trying desperately not to piss off the Trump voters. He is a guy who is lying to the Northern Virginia voters. He's saying, I'm a Mitt Romney guy. I'm a John McCain guy. I'm a George H.W. Bush guy. I'm not like those dirty people down there. And in Southern Virginia, he's talking about critical race theory.
Mm-hmm.
He's talking about Antifa. He's talking about the election fraud.
Mm-hmm.
He's talking about vaccine skepticism. This is a guy who's trying to have it both ways. And McAuliffe needs to make Trump the center of the argument. You're wondering why you've got a lack of motivation from Democratic voters because you haven't talked about the one thing they fear and hate the most, Donald fucking Trump. Get on it, Terry. You know better than this.
You heard it, folks. You heard it. You heard the Rick Wilson. Get on it. All right, guys. So that is our show for the evening. Remember, if you are pissed off at AT&T, hashtag hang up on AT&T. Send us your screenshot that you canceled them and you're out of there, and we'll send you some Lincoln Project swag, and we'll get that trending. And believe me, AT&T is paying attention because we're not the only ones holding their feet to the fire on this. And if you're also upset about January 6th, call your representatives, call your members of Congress, and tell them, do something about this. Use your powers of Congress to compel these people to testify. Let them know it's important to you to protect our democracy and hold these people accountable. All right. We will see you guys on Thursday at our new time. Remember, 7 o'clock. We decided to fall back a little sooner than daylight savings time and all that. We're starting at 7. So we'll be back here on Wednesday. And don't forget to tune in to our sister show tomorrow. We're speaking. Good night.
Good night, folks.